Okay. Welcome, everybody, to September 26th, regular Town Council meeting for the Town of Vegreville. And I'll start off today by introducing a guest that we have is the interim CAO of the County Midburn, Pat Vincent. Pat, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council. It's a pleasure to be in your council chambers. It's been a number of years since I've been in the administration building for the town of Vegreville. I want to compliment you on the outstanding renovations you've done and the magnificent council chambers that you have. It's very much a pleasure. I've had a chance to meet with your CEO already, and we have scheduled meetings on a regular basis now in an effort to build cooperation and collaboration between our respective municipalities. I've been in the business for over 49 years. I was supposed to have retired 7 years ago, but found a niche in being an interim CEO. And I love it because I'm here for 4 or 5 months. Now bring us to about 1st of February, middle of February. Then I'm off to someplace nice and hot. Excellent. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, so I'll be looking for a motion to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. Councilor Lemko makes the motion. Is there any additions or deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Next up is the adoption of the minutes of our last regular meeting. Councilor Berry makes the motion, touching his nose like an auction. Thank you. Is there any errors or omissions within those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. First up, we have a letter from Murray Armitage, the chair of the Vegreville Library Board. Dear Mayor McPhee and Council, further to my letter, June 22nd, recommending appointment of Jennifer Chirkus to serve on the Town of Vegreville Library Board effective January 1, 2023. The Library Board hereby requests that the effective date be amended to immediately. The reason for this request is so that we may address the recent resignation of a board member. With this, Library Board will continue to be at its maximum number of members per the Library Act. Okay. Take a motion for receive and file on this first. Councillor Bullock makes the motion. Okay, is there any comments? Go ahead.
Sure, Your Worship. As it's detailed in the letter, there was one of our board members that left sooner than anticipated. This was already a proposed appointment, and we're just expediting it by a couple of months. So we're happy to have Jennifer join the board and bring a different perspective than some of the current board members. So we'll welcome her to our meeting this Wednesday if it's possible to have that passed tonight.
Okay. Any other comments? Jennifer works for the town? Yeah, that's okay. Okay, seeing no other comments, all those in favor, receive and file and appoint the member. Okay? Gary, thank you. Next up, Director Saskew.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I am presenting here the monthly cash statement for the month ended August 31st, 2022. We began the month with $12.97 million and ended the month with $10.67 million, and that's including BMO and high interest savings account. Some of the major sources of cash for the month were GST refund of $45,000, MSI operating grant proceeds of $50,500, Government of Alberta grant for $150,000, and the CCBF funding allocation for 2022 of $342,000. Major uses of cash were 2022 construction and capital projects totaling to $2.1 million. So that's where the majority of our cash went this month. I did want to note that our high interest savings account earned in excess of $20,000 for the month of August. At the beginning of the year, we were earning approximately $1,700 a month in interest. So that's a significant amount of increase over the prior year. Rates have increased, and as well as our contributions. So our high interest savings account is earning 3.8% right now. This is not locked in for a year or anything like a GIC. This is just straight or interest earned on a cash account. So we're quite happy with the increase in rates. And that's all I have unless anyone has questions.
First, we'll take a motion for the financial statement. Councillor Curtis makes the motion. Any questions for Director? Go ahead.
Sorry, can you just remind me what you said the Canada Community Building Fund total was?
342,057 to be exact.
Okay, thank you.
And the 150,000 from the government of Alberta was on, what grant was that from? Was that?
You caught me. I wrote down that it was receipted into deferred revenue for roads, but I was meaning to go and check exactly what that grant was. I don't have it on me.
Well, it must be the money that we received from, probably from transportation.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was gonna say it might be the STIP, but I don't know for.
I do believe so, yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of the financial statement? Thank you very much, Director. Next up, CAO Leggett.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is, topic is the organizational chart adoption, and we're looking to seek council adoption of the new organizational chart proposed by Dr. Daryl Moore from Stopler Hughes Human Resources Consultants. Background on this item is in the 2022 budget, council directed administration undertake an organizational review of the town of Vegreville's operating structure. The CAO began searching for a consultant to undertake this work and determined that Dr. Daryl Moore from Stopler Hughes was best suited to this task. Dr. Moore then conducted an extensive interview process with senior managers, senior staff, and council to discuss the current structure and begin building a model based on inputs from these individuals. The resulting restructured organizational chart is the culmination of this work and the input from over 20 Town of Vegreville staff, including myself and the members of council, in conjunction with the expertise of Dr. Moore. Areas of concern that were identified included fractured human resources practices and policies spread amongst all directors and departments, and a need to centralize and streamline our human resources functions, a lack of congruency resulting in overly diversified portfolios and a lack of competitive structure impacting recruitment and succession planning, lack of second-in-command managerial capacity in the corporate services department, resulting in an inability to delegate senior-level tasks, and absence of delegated authority during vacations and other absences of the department director. The benefits of the new structure include realign departmental priorities to ensure department heads have very specific areas of focus, therefore empowering decision-making, improved interaction and information flow, improve managerial capacity and departmental focus, improving areas of departmental specialization, resulting in better ability for succession planning and or recruitment of vacancies, and better aligning the town's managerial roles with other municipalities in Alberta. This project is an important component of Council's #1 2022 to 2025 strategic plan goal, being people and culture. Financial implications. The organizational restructure analysis is within the approved budget and has a build-to-date cost of approximately $6,500. The overall final cost for full implementation will be an estimated $5,000 to $25,000 investment in staffing by the end of Q2 in 2023, depending on final wages negotiated with the new hires. This represents excellent value for money and streamlining of positions and portfolios. This minor operational cost increase is due to transitioning some roles to manager from director, and also due to pending retirements that will be restructured to align with the new positions, creating effectively a netting out of the bulk costs. The new communication strategy, the new and improved organizational chart attached to this report will appear in the 2022 annual report. And the recommendation is that council adopt the new organizational structure and chart attached to this report and direct administration to fully implement the structure by the end of Q2 2023.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll take a motion for the recommendation. Counselor Bullock makes the motion. Any comments? Start here. Counselor Rudy.
I have two questions for you. Just wondering about the communication strategy. It talks about attaching it to the annual report. I would just wonder if this is circulated with our staff or how that information is shared with them. That's my first question. And the second question is, there's no reference to outcomes here, and I know that is an important part of setting a goal and changing some of our directions. So some of the areas of concern that were identified and that are hoped to be addressed by this new structure, will we have a means to be able to measure and also come back and evaluate whether or not the decisions that we made had a positive impact, or if we need to address some of those? So would we bring it back in 6 to 12 months or sometime sooner to make sure that we're on the right track? So 2 questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. So yeah, I guess on the first one, the managers have been communicated the new structure. And I think from the communication standpoint, I was really referencing sort of the public communications piece of this. Of course, it's appearing on a public council agenda here right now. So if you'd like to see something different in terms of that communication, us push it out in another way, either through a press release or something like that, totally open to that idea for sure. Yeah, the deliverables, we're kind of embedded in the benefits of that new structure. And certainly open to review it after 6 months and full implementation and see where we are going forward.
Sorry, if I could redirect your question.
She's going to redirect.
So if I could make a recommendation, I appreciate what we've done here and the intentions, but maybe as council, if we can have this as a bring forward conversation in 3 to 6 months or something, to be able to discuss how it's working and if there's anything that needs to be tweaked.
How about Q2 of 2023, and then we'll get the final, the final cost then too, because that's when it's pegged out here, and then we'll take another look at it then.
Sure.
And as for the communication, I would defer to my colleagues to see how that needs to be shared with the public or with our staff, but just want to make sure that we have complete clarity and openness with our staff, because sometimes one department might know something and the rest of the organization doesn't, because we have a large organization. We don't necessarily always have access to the same information at the same time. So I don't know how we do that, but
I think that's the biggest concern of council is that, I mean, the public, doesn't matter how much you're gonna show them, they're gonna have doubts either way. But as long as we're sharing this with all of our staff and everybody understands where their role is and how what department they fall under. So I think that's the biggest concern right now.
Yep. And certainly at the senior manager level, folks, it's been fully discussed on a number of occasions and yeah, they're aware.
As long as it works down to the employees and they know who they're reporting to and what role they have and where they fall.
Yep.
Any other questions? Certainly.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say, like, I'm happy with how this turned out, and this is one of the first big ticket items I guess I've been a part of. A lot of the stuff we discuss sometimes has some, background that I'm not usually aware of, being on, the newer council member. This is something I was around and being a part of, and I think it's going to work out very well. And I hope that the employees are happy and staying in line with our goals and really moving this town of Vegreville forward. So, thank you, everybody.
I do have one concern, and it's on the community engagement and economic development side. And I know it's new, and it's something that we've never done in conjunction like this, and we got a new manager in the position and stuff, and I'm happy with the direction we're taking. I'm wondering if it's worthwhile bringing somebody in to show us what it should look like, or effectively have that conversation with the head of that department and the senior staff in that department. And to me, it would make sense, because we created something new, and if it's just a day or we consult with somebody, I think that, to me, that department is going to mean a lot moving forward, and I like the people that we have there. I just don't know what the expectations will be creating something new, and if we could bring somebody in that maybe help just give it some, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Best practices, and, you know, I don't want to go through this of trial and error, but if there's somebody that we could bring in and sit down with this new department and get their thoughts, and maybe we know somebody out there that can help, that's been through this and seen this and knows basically how this should function. And it's not a knock against everybody in that department. I just feel that maybe spending a little bit of money right here, right now, to bringing in somebody that knows what it should look like would be a big help, instead of learning by trial and error.
Okay, thanks, Your Worship. Totally open to that idea, so I'll speak with the manager and we'll start shopping for somebody that can give us some advice there.
Okay, is there any other comments regarding, okay, so all those in favor of the recommendation of the reorg? Carried. Thank you very much. I know the staff put a lot of work into this, and we want to thank Dr. Darrell and his group too, and we look forward to the changes in this organization. Okay, so next up is council reports, and we will start. Oh, I was going to bring this forward on our council reports. I know that there's some boards that share 2 members of council, but as we move forward with our reorg here and stuff, the way that things are, I think that we're going to expect at least once a month that you bring your board report to council at this time. And I just don't know how it affects anybody, but with any boards that have 2 members on it, you can alternate bringing reports, or you can do one week, one the other. But I think it's time that we start, you know, to bring more information back from our boards and to the public here. So, if you're all good with that, some of you that sat on a lot of boards probably going to be take a little longer making your council report. But so we'll start with Councillor Warwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've had a couple of very different types of meetings this month. On the 14th of September, I was able to take part in the second day of the Vegreville value scoping session at the Composite. So I think there'll need to be some conversations as that moves forward, but it was a very interesting day. And I followed that the next day by attending the Fcss meeting. I'm happy to say that they've had some interest with that board in regards to some new members and recruitments, so that was really good to see. And they've got a bunch of initiatives coming up this fall. They just recently, of course, did their hot dog sale, and they're looking at some good funding ways through potential of returning to the bingo this fall with that ability coming since things have opened up from COVID. They also are going to take on the 50-50 for the first part of the season through one of the hockey associations. So I think that's great to see that there was interest in that regards. And of course, still discussion about needs moving forward. So I know that'll be part of our conversations with some of the other groups we had worked with. But again, it was really nice to see some new interest in the board because they were struggling a little bit with members. From the 20th to the 23rd, I attended the Alberta Munis convention. And first off, it was very nice to have our FCM representative be Councillor Rudick, and always helps put Vegreville on the map, and we always get a big cheer out for Vegreville when we're there. And it was great to have everybody back in, and what I can tell you is from that, one of the biggest takeaways that I got is us not backing down. We have to continue to be very strong, loud advocates for what a rural urban municipality is. I think that's the theme that I heard through almost every conversation, was still some of the concern that, you know, the funding models are often geared towards the larger centers. It seemed like resolution after resolution was trying to address some of that. So I think we can't back down from it, because from what I saw, there's always very loud voices, unfortunately, from our Edmonton and Calgary centers. And I think sometimes even the people creating the programs are not understanding. And the one that stood out the most to me was when they were talking about the transportation. I had actually made a few notes in my phone about that, and they talk about funding models for transportation, and it always seems to miss the mark that we need that as much. We have less resources here in the community. We sometimes have less services here in the community. We're almost always taxed with travel when it comes to seeing specialists, and I feel like we're being forgotten in that mark quite a bit. So I think that's something that I would look forward to us working with our surrounding partners, including the county, and just to be as strong of advocates as we can for that. Today I had the Fcss meeting as well, and Councillor Curtis and I have sort of split up a little bit of what we were going to bring forward. So just a couple of things I was going to mention. FCSS has done very well, and they're very good at the application for the grants and trying to keep within the funding. Of course, though, they have had some grants that have been unsuccessful, and what they're finding is exactly what we've been talking about, that so many programs are massively oversubscribed. So I think that's something that we're going to continue to see, is there's the downloading of services. I think that a big conversation within FCSS will happen. As we know, there's going to be provincial changes again, and with new leadership, there could be new ministers in place again, which sometimes impacts the way the budgets go forward. So I think that's something that everybody's kind of waiting to see where we sit on. Today, there was 3 new participants within the board, which was nice to see, another youth component. And we did have a lady join us whose family is new to the community, and it was great to have her perspective on some of the reasons that they moved into the community and some of what they see, so that was really good. One of the issues that I was going to bring forward was we were talking about advocacy, and FCSS has brought forward that they are very thankful for the advocacy that was done with the Alberta Works. They've actually said that they've noticed an extremely significant change in the way the response has been, and that in fact we're once again almost being looked at as a hub. So I think that goes to show that sometimes when we question whether we need to really strongly push to be advocating, I think it does help. And a big thank you to them, because one of the things that was very helpful was their tracking of information and data, and it arms us with ways to push forward. So I think that was really good. I'm going to leave the majority of the rest to Councillor Curtis on this one. And tonight's council meeting, I just wanted to share one other thank you to Councillor Lemko. I know he attended on behalf of the council and town to present at the federal boundaries redistribution meeting. I had the opportunity to speak with a couple of mayors from other communities, and it sounds like it was quite an intimidating process, and it sounds like everything you said was very strongly aligned after a conversation I had with the mayor from Lloydminster. So thank you for that. That's all I have.
Intimidating.
Almost as bad as being in here.
Well, that's good, and I'm glad that the Alberta meetings talk more about the rural, identifying that not just 2 large cities in this province. And I do believe Alberta meetings and RMA are going to have to get together and talk to the province about sharing infrastructure money with. It just doesn't make sense the way they're splitting it up today. Okay, thank you very much for that report, and we'll go to Councillor Lemko.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks for those kind words, Councillor Orawa. On September 13th, I attended the Go East of Edmonton board meeting. And it's interesting, the Go East is a regional tourism board. They received close to $100,000 in funding through grants to market this area. And their campaign is reaching out to many communities, including ours. Many people who attend the corn maze or any other events, and you ask them how they heard about us or how they are, it's evident. It's the Go East website, the travel guide, and we're fortunate to have this marketing group in this Northeast region that keeps bringing tourism here. September 14th, I attended the boundary redistribution. Now, when you talk intimidating, I believe the room had 3 members of the panel that listens to, and this is a public hearing. I believe there's 24 of these throughout the province, and we were number 7. There's 2 people on computers that are putting the files up on the board and the charts and the maps, and one person who takes your name and puts you down. You're allowed 10 minutes in the room to speak to the board or the panel, and they're able to ask questions. There was Fort Saskatchewan was represented there, Strathcona, us, and the mayor of Redwater was there. Now, some history on, there's 34 seats in the government right now that Alberta has, and they're going to 37. There's 800,000 people larger in Alberta than there was in the past. That's why they need 3 more seats. So they had to put about 115,000 people per electoral district. So that's how they identified what they had to do. They had 3 more, so they have to shrink some, move some around. The proposed boundaries are only proposed. They had to start somewhere, is what we were told. So then I was able to go, unfortunately, first. And our biggest concern as a council and as a community was that our trading area, we are the hub, our trading area goes east-west and typically north, although we have some folks from the south that tend to, do come here and trade and do that here, but their hub is Camaros. So to take 5,600 people and plunk it right out of Lakeland, so the highway would come down, Highway 16, and then just go around by the airport and then go back towards Lloyd and plunk them out. Fort Saskatchewan and Sherwood Park would be split. Fort would go into Lloyd, and Sherwood Park would combine with Beaumont and become a new district on their own. Their concern was the same as so their trade partners, like Fort Saskatchewan and Sherwood Park, align together with everything they do along that corridor. They were to take Redwater and Gibbons out of Sturgeon and move it into Lakeland. They do nothing east, is what the mayor said. We have no relationship east. So in a sense, you're taking Vegreville out, who wants to stay, and you're plunking us in, who don't want to go. Same population. You're not making a good choice of that. So there was some talking about that, and at the very end, when the mayor of Redwater was talking about that exact thing I just said, about taking Veg out and putting them in, and I was nodding my head, and the chair, he said, yeah, I can see by Councillor Lemko's nodding that it makes a lot of sense. So mindful, we have to start somewhere. What you see as proposed will not be what you see in the end. That's why we have 24 hearings. And we want to listen, we want to get this from everybody. One of the Sherwood Park's comment was, they said that keep the north half of Sherwood Park tied to Fort Saskatchewan and take the bottom half of Sherwood Park and move it to Beaumont to keep the populations as close as you can, but don't separate us because it doesn't make sense. So they were happy with that, and we left them an impression to keep it the way it is. But we'll see where that goes. The corn maze on the 17th and 18th, 24th and 25th as well. We've had 3 weekends now with the corn maze. There's been probably about 2,400 people attend the corn maze on these 3 weekends. We've had the museum opened on each of the weekends and generated close to 600 people walking around inside our museum on those 6 days, so which is nice to see. We've had fortunate. We've had the fire department for the first weekend, the Christmas Bureau and daycare on the second weekend, and soccer on the third weekend. And we have more stuff coming for the next 3 weekends, and the weather's been great. September 19th, I attended the Legion wreath laying in memory of in honor of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's passing. It was supposed to be outside the cenotaph, although they had to move it inside because of the weather. It was raining a little bit, and it was interesting. The honor guard were our firefighters in our fire department, and they got a call, our Full Throttle, and fortunate enough for some other Legion members there that we were able to take the flags, and the crew left to fight the fire. And I must say, I went to the co-op parking lot to see the blaze itself, and I stood there, and I was witness to a fine fire department we have. I was more proud then than I have ever been about how they handled that situation. That black smoke billowing out there, and many people, young firefighters who've trained and were as good as any professional firefighter. Trucks positioned right. We had a full body of firemen, and they fought valiantly on that fire. So kudos to them. One proud retired fire chief here. So, and the community should be grateful that we have such great firemen that are volunteers again. Remember that, fighting fires and protecting our community. I was fortunate enough to attend the Alberta Munis September 21st to 23rd, and was able to spend time with colleagues and share what's going on in the province with many other municipalities. It's a great time. And tonight's council meeting, Your Worship, and that's all I have. A little too much, but.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Things weren't all that busy for me this last little while, other than a fair amount of time out at the corn maze volunteering, and like Councillor Lemko has said, it's going very well. On September 15th, I joined a webinar with the Rural Health Professionals Action Plan. It was put on by a group called Unstoppable Conversations, and the theme of this workshop, in a sense, or webinar, I believe they're going to be holding a series of them, was Changing Conversation, Change the Future. And what they were looking at is some of the obstacles that we may have when we're recruiting health professionals to our various communities. And it's fairly broad across a lot of different areas. And so this series will slowly give some discussion as to some of the obstacles or some of the things that have been having problems. And the outcome of this in here basically was promoting acceptance of new professionals within the community, getting more information out to the community to understand that as we recruit the individuals, they are full professionals, they have their training, they take additional training when they get here, and we need to welcome them to the community and be more open with them and continue to appreciate them. I was also at Alberta Munis conference in Calgary, echo the aspect that it was good to be with fellow members of council. I thought that some of the sessions were extremely well done this year. I really enjoyed a few of them. I'm not going to go into detail on them right now. And then tonight's regular council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barry. Councillor Rudick.
Well, my report is rather full because we've had FCM quarterly board meetings in Strathcona County since our last council meeting. So there was a number of different conversations there. Two little bits that I'll bring forward just to maybe appease or allay some concern with all of the conversation here, that there is some specific outreach right now and advocacy leading up to the specific asks that the FCM Rural Forum is asking for. So we're doing a specific outreach to the CPC caucus as well as ministers that are appropriate to talk about these different issues. And the three themes that we've been talking about is resilient infrastructure, which talks about specifically the permanent doubling of the Canada Community Building Fund. And tonight, Director Sasky referenced ours as being 342,000 and change. So the permanent doubling of it allows us to be able to do that really critical work, and also have it indexed so that it's actually, I think the index is currently at 2%, but have it at 3%, so it matches a little closer to what inflation is. But there's a couple other important parts of that, and we want some disaster mitigation and adaptation reinvestment, based on what we're seeing in the East Coast right now, in particular. The type of regrowth and rebuild that needs to happen in some of those communities is going to take a long time. And there simply isn't enough money between the provinces and local municipal authorities to be able to rebuild some critical infrastructure there. Federal government is the sole source for a lot of these projects, so we need to make sure that we have that in place. And then another part of that is the housing supply. And this sort of fed through a lot of the things that we were talking about at Alberta Munis this week. So what that includes is some investment in the Housing Accelerator Fund. So it has the range of options between those that are experiencing homelessness right up to being able to purchase housing of your own and everything in between, whether you're a senior, a young person, or a family trying to get into the housing market. And part of that is the specific reference to rural transportation, so that there is a separate investment fund for transit or transportation intercommunity, and there needs to be a reinvestment in that federally to be able to do that, because we're seeing more and more we have the ability to be able to answer some of these big problems that people are having in big centers in terms of cost, but we can't do that if we don't have a way for them to be able to get to and from larger centers for some of the vital services, such as medical appointments, like Councillor Warwa referenced. And of course, the last part, near and dear to our heart, is the RCMP retroactive fund. So we want to make sure that that piece is fully paid for by the federal government. So those are the three prongs of our advocacy. The other part that I'll mention from our board meetings is there's a number of resolutions that are brought forward from the different committees that are held the week previous. And it's always reassuring to me to be able to have some very difficult conversations and have everybody emerge the other side unscathed, still friends, and regardless of where the board member is from, that we all agree on the best way to be able to move the country forward. So there's a number of different resolutions about different issues, but I'm going to just make specific reference to the federal support for Canadian consumption of Canadian oil and gas resources, because this council supported the resolution that was put forward by White Court. So ultimately, there was a few tweaks in the wording and the title of this resolution, but it was passed unanimously by all of the board members from across the country, regardless of province or territory. So just wanted to again say that the whereas clauses, there was a little bit of a rewrite in terms of the title, to talk about the need to be able to look towards transition. But in order to be able to do that in the interim, the best method to do that is to consume our own energy sources and be able to fund that transition by utilizing our own resources. So I thought, again, municipal order of government is a great way to be able to have hard conversations and emerge intact. So.
Well, it's kind of funny, you would have to tell the federal government about common sense about using our own resources, but whatever, we'll keep lobbying on that point.
And at Alberta Munis, the one thing that I'm going to just point out, I appreciated the opportunity to be able to be there. First time in many years for me because of COVID, and then last year with my knee, I wasn't able to attend in person, so it was great to be able to reconnect with people that I knew and also meet some new ones. And as far as the housing stock in Vegreville, we've had this conversation a number of times at the MD Minburn Foundation, but just to drive home the point again, before I started Alberta Munis Conference, I did a presentation to the Intercity Community Forum on Social Policy, and it talks about all of the social issues around housing and FCSS program provision. The primary point for Alberta is that we are at the very least far below the national average for housing stock, and we're the province that's latest to the game. So every other province in the country and territory participates very vigorously, and even if we were going to do the very bare minimum and get 25,000 new housing units, so spots for people to be able to live, we would still be below the average. So In order to round out that conversation, I would expect this council to be asked by the MD Minburn Foundation to enter into that conversation for us to be able to have an inventory and an anticipated goal of what we need for the community, because it's very hard to be able to advocate to the provincial government about what the lodge situation is without having a better understanding of what our housing situation is. We don't know what the inventory or the stock is for rental, all the way up to full housing. So, again, good conversations moving forward, and CMHC and both the provincial and the federal conversations are sort of intertwining everywhere I went. So it was good to see that the foundation at the MD Minburn at the lodge is right on track. So we'll bring that back and expect to have some more conversations with both the county and the town to make sure that we're being good partners for the future residents of our community. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bullock.
Okay, thank you. I've as well attended the Alberta Munis convention. I took in a few sessions there. One was on the future of municipal transportation. I felt that they actually missed the mark on small communities, and it seemed really geared to the bigger centers, like, you know, Red Deer, Calgary, Edmonton. They kind of missed the mark, and then they drifted off into an energy conversation. So I actually felt that session actually missed the mark totally. Another session I was in there was actually pretty good. It was good for a new councillor like myself, showing how to bring stuff forward in council and the proper way of doing it. So I feel that'll help myself out going forward. So as well, took in the Vegreville corn maze. It was interesting seeing all the people where they were coming from and talking to them. So it was quite interesting out of the community. It is bringing people here. Some have been here before. Some are new for sure. So, and then tonight's council meeting. I had a pretty late. I was away for a while.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you. I also attended the AB Munis conference. A couple of the sessions I took in that I thought were pretty good was one was called the weaponization of social media, which I think a lot of information on you know what can come of that. A small rumor turns into something big, lots of slander and things like that, and how we can protect ourselves. You know, looking forward to seeing what we can do with our social media side at the town as well to protect ourselves and to make sure the proper information is out and circulating. The second one was the ES&G session, so that's environment, social, and governance. And then, you know, going forward, it's a big deal for companies nowadays. Not just companies, but, you know, anybody that's opening a small business, big business. But if we're going to grow the town, you know, a lot of businesses are looking for an area that is ES&G conscious. So going forward, as the town starts to evolve and grow, we definitely have to make sure that we're crossing T's and dotting I's when it comes to ES&G. As well, today we had our Fcss meeting, so I'll pick up where Councillor Warala left off. So one of the things, and I keep bringing this up, seems every meeting, but the food bank is overwhelmed. That's one thing that keeps coming up. So they're always needing drivers, always needing help. It was one of the busiest summers they ever had. So if you have a few minutes, get in touch with the food bank. You know, drive around and pass out some food when you can, and you know, just help what needs to be helped in town. Volunteering is tough these days, and I get that everybody's busy. But where you can help, it makes a big difference. The other thing I was going to talk about was, if I can find it here, I'm sure I had one more. FCSS is reaching out to see what the community feels regarding a possible youth center. So right now they're reaching out for community engagement, and they're looking into what other communities have done to make the youth center successful and what advice they've had for the beginning stages. So again, very preliminary. We're looking for community engagement on what we have here, what we can do to you know, to give youth something to do and you know, help them out winter, summer, whatever it is. So it's in the beginning stages, but they're moving forward with that. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, which I thought was cool, you know, our seniors link-in calls, so the SLIC calls. We got some survey results back from that. Very positive results. So we have, you know, 93% of the listeners and the participants feel more positive about themselves and take action towards improving their life. That's just from one call, and I was lucky enough to do the last one. And there's three comments here which are very sincere, and I'd like to read them out. When you're 83, there isn't much to look forward to. The slick call gives me something to look forward to. That means a lot. I like everything. I get to talk to people, and they get to listen. I know that's huge. And this one that I really like. I really like this program. It helps me talk to people other than my cat. Right? So it's a big deal for them, and it's an awesome thing. And I'm ready for the next one whenever the FCSS is setting it up. And it just goes to show they want to be involved in the community and they want to hear from us. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for what you guys do all the time. My council report is very short. I've been away for a couple of weeks visiting family in Nova Scotia, and I got out the day before a hurricane. But I'd like to say right now that I'd like to thank all our emergency services in town for their effort at the fire downtown at that Full Throttle. And I've had a lot of comments that were very positive. I've had one negative comment so far, but when you get 35 good ones, even in my holidays in Nova Scotia, there was people reaching out to me, and I couldn't be more proud of the way that the town handled it, and the fire department and the police. So moving forward, we'll see what happens, and the outcome will be there. So at this time, is there any other items of council business we'd like to bring forward? Certainly could. Go ahead, Councilor Ruth.
As a volunteer, I am the vice chair of the Yellowhead East Health Advisory Council, and I just want to invite council as well as the public to attend this Thursday, September 29th, from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Event Center. It will be an opportunity to be able to discuss a variety of topics related to health provision in the area with some guest speakers, as well as some Alberta Health Services staff. So just invite you to come.
Now, Councillor Barry, do you have anything else this week with Alberta Health?
Sorry, with which?
Alberta Health, is there any other meeting that's coming up? On October the 4th. A Zoom meeting? Do you have anything there?
I don't have any, just a minute. Vegreville Community Health Service Awareness Meeting.
Yeah. Are you attending?
I will be going on Zoom there at 8:30 in the morning, yes.
Okay. I'll probably be able to make it, but just may not, so I'll make sure that you're going to be there. Okay, so if that's it, there's no other business of council. Thank you all again for what you do, and I would like to adjourn this meeting.